At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. Everyone loves the promise of modular construction, faster builds, higher quality, and scalable housing solutions. But here's the truth. The biggest barrier isn't technology. It's the risk. Risk scares off lenders, slows down adoption, and keeps modular construction from reaching its full potential. Today, we're speaking with someone who is tackling that problem head on. His name is Atul Bhatt, founder and CEO of ModuRisk Inc, the company building a risk-intelligent platform to finally give modular the predictability it needs to scale. But before we get into any or all of this, we need to give a big shout out to our supporting member, Cobalt Creed. They serve as builders, developers, prefab home builders, and manufacturers, allowing them to achieve the highest levels of comfort, indoor air quality, and low energy costs with their HVAC systems installed for their projects and their customers. Their approach is simple. By using their proprietary small duct high velocity central heating and cooling system, learn more at cobaltcreed.com. Now let's have a few words from these sponsors and we're going to get right into it. Brought to you by Greatech, developers of the complete light gauge steel and wood framing software for Revit StruxSoft. Offsite, modular, or prefabricated, StruxSoft Framer turns Revit into a powerful manufacturing tool, automating every step of the DFMA process from design to final delivery. StruxSoft doesn't just work with Revit, it transforms it. Jumpstart your designs at StruxSoftSolutions.com. Halleck Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for offsite modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, halleckltd.com. All right. A big thank you to all of our supporting members and, of course, all the supporting members you see scrolling across the ticker below. We can't do any or all of this without your support out there. Be part of our network. Over 3,000 interviews of industry experts from around the world. We'd love to have you part of that. And to include, we'd love to see you at Greenbuild this year. That's right. There's your QR code. 20% off a full conference pass. You're not going to get that anywhere else. We have partnered with Greenbuild this year. We have a 20 by 40 stage, and we'd love to see all of you join us on that stage. So take that QR code, take a picture of it with your camera, whatever it is you got to do. And if you want to be on that stage speaking about your products, you want to meet the politicians, you want to meet the people that are changing how they are rebuilding LA. Well, that's what we're working on this year. If you want to have your modular or ADU unit in the parking lot, well, we got a solution for you on that as well. So again, November 4th through the 7th in Los Angeles. Would love to have you join us. All right, let's hop into it and bring our guest onto the show. Atul, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Dave. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Man, I'm excited to have this conversation today because we're going to have a little bit of back and forth, I'm sure of it. But most of all, how are we going to de-risk building using offsite construction, modular construction, whatever it is that we're going to be talking about, as long as it involves offsite. But before we get into that, Atul, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have a family member on. But you only have a minute and a half to do it. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. So, I spent half of my life in India and then moved to the US, stayed there for 5 years, and then came to Canada. My educational background is in computer engineering with an MBA with a finance major. So I've gravitated towards technology projects, particularly in the financial services industry, spanning banks, pension actuarial services, retail and industrial financial services, and alongside I also worked at companies like GE, Eli Lilly and Company, and learned and applied my knowledge of Six Sigma as well as project management that I acquired through a project management professional. And all of that led me to ultimately work at Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which I left last year. But with the awareness that affordable housing is the problem of our century. It is a problem for our generation and the future generations. And at CMHC, the mandate was to make housing more affordable. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation is the hard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac equivalent of Canada. Being a smaller country, all the functions reside within one entity. And I learned that, the typical approaches of financing require build now, pay later. Housing is expensive, capital intensive, so that leads to this problem of when do you pay later? How long will it take for you to pay? And in the meanwhile, what happens to the value of that asset? Those are variables that are incredibly hard to control with macro-prudential measures like interest rates and monetary policy. Mm-hmm. So after about 10 years at CMHC, where I learned a lot about the housing innovation ecosystem and partners that are working actively to solve that, I walked away with the realization that it needs to be a solution that lies outside of the mandate of any government agency right now, which is we need to build differently. And that brought me to offsite. And over the last year and a half, I've been researching why hasn't offsite, which has been the best idea for the last 50 years, hasn't materialized to realize its potential. So that's my minute and a half, I think.
Oh, hey, listen, there's no hard, fast rule on that. But, you bring up a great question. And this is the question everybody's been asking, right? Why is it not growing? Why is it not moving faster? Why isn't it becoming more mainstream? And I'm assuming that is what ModuRisk is all about, helping break down the barriers, get rid of the silos, increase the communication, and de-risk the ability for developers, manufacturers, and financiers to get involved in this.
Yeah, so the way we see it at ModuRisk is that modular construction is part of a housing production system, which is bigger than a construction technique. And while a lot of navel gazing and improvement has happened within the construction techniques themselves, the integration points with how do you bring a developer of multifamily housing along? How do you bring insurers along so that they have a better understanding of the risks involved with modular methods of construction? How do you go beyond regional alliances and build national or even international alliances for supply chain, for regional manufacturing or national manufacturing. Those are some of the unaddressed questions that we think require greater transparency of what's not working. And if we understand what's not working well, we probably will have a better shot. And I hope that your 20 years of experience agrees with what I'm stating here, that if we understand the problems better, we have a greater shot at avoiding them.
Well, it's kind of like history. You have to learn from your history. You have to learn from past mistakes, right? Whether it's on a global scale or on a modular scale. And I think a lot of times we forget history. So yeah, I do agree with you, that there is a lot of mistakes that we have made in the past with modular or just offsite in general for you panel builders out there. That, other people have figured out how to move forward on, but the rest of the world has not.
And history is his story, right? So who gets to write the narrative? It's the most dominant group or personality, and right now it is the traditional stick builders. And the government has to get housing built, and so they listen to those that can deliver the fastest. But that is starting to change slowly because of labor constraints, because of supply chain disruptions. Tariffs are part of the problem, but not the entire problem. These cause us to think differently. That we need to think about where will the labor come from. The younger generation isn't as interested in learning the trades. The older trades are not necessarily. The older individuals are not able to sustain their contribution for the next 15, 20 years. So how do we build housing now? Right? So
Well, I mean, that's
feel
it.
this is modular. Yeah.
Well, you're right, though. Listen, I'm 55, and 20 years from now, I doubt I'll be doing the Dave Cooper live show or swinging a hammer or setting a modular. And the problem is that most of the trades out there are in that 40 to 55 range.
Yeah. And materials. So the other aspect of the traditional stick built industry is that it is not designed to deliver efficiency. It is designed to deliver housing as much as you need. So efficiency takes a backseat. Therefore, any improvements that happen in the methodology are to add to the profit margins of developers, general contractors, and other players involved. Nothing wrong with profit making, but without efficiency pursuit, profit making is simply adding cost to the cost of housing, and therefore making housing more or less affordable, more expensive. So that equation is something that can only be cracked, in my opinion, with industrialized methods of construction. The paradox or the contradiction that we're dealing with here is that although that is the most promising method of construction, it still remains, very difficult to activate fully at an ecosystem level because all the players are not synchronized. So ModuRisk, our goal is to make all the risks visible and then create collaboration and partnerships and coordination around how do we manage the known unknowns.
So let's walk through this a little bit, right? And I know you have a couple slides you'll share with us here in a second. We talked about a little bit of what inspired you to create, ModuRisk, and we talked about the opportunity. You're in Canada, huge opportunity right now with, a couple $1 billion being allotted towards the growth of modular construction. But the problems haven't been solved for the financiers, the developers, or the manufacturers yet on the communication. So walk us through what ModuRisk truly is going to do. And if I'm a bank, what's it going to do for me? If I'm a manufacturer, what's it going to do for me? If I'm the end user, the consumer, the financier, whatever the case is, help me understand what the value proposition of what ModuRisk is doing.
For sure. One clarification, we are not going after a retail consumer. I think the perception that the perception of the retail consumer matters is probably more relevant for single family homes and linked homes. But for multifamily residential, consumers are not as picky, is the perception that I'm hearing. With that, now can I share some screens just to...
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we started with is recognizing that let's acknowledge and learn from what failures have held back modular industry in the past. And I dug into over the last year and a half. I dug into all of the failures and did some deep dive to find out there are 217 repeating patterns of failure areas, and they're spread across 5 phases of the modular journey and 50 risk categories. Um, the hypothesis that we would like to validate through a pilot we are building right now is that if you manage these 217 risks well, you are more likely to succeed than not. Now, it's a hypothesis because I didn't spend my life in construction. I need people like yourself to join us and tell us, try it. Does it work for you? Did it help you prevent risks? And we're trying to design it in a way that risk management, which is typically seen as, okay, it's an overhead. I don't need to do that. It's somebody else's job. I'll just buy insurance. Well, the truth is, if you keep doing that, then you are adding to your costs. And while you can get housing built, you cannot get housing built affordably. And that's where the public-private partnership, Build Canada Homes, says government is spending a lot of money, giving prioritized access to land, and trying to make the process for accessing that capital easier. However, the other part of the public-private partnership is the private role in that. So the private industry here, there are some coalitions forming in Canada, which is wonderful. They're trying to advise the government of Canada how to take a portfolio approach so that to housing development and community development, which is a big part of the solution in addressing an order pipeline, right? If there's a small city, a small town, they cannot afford to have their own factory. But if there's a region that has 20 cities in it, now you can have your factory and you can have one buyer of that. Build Canada Homes could be that buyer. We don't know that it will be, but it could be that. That's the position of the coalition, one of the coalitions. So on and so forth. There are multiple coalitions forming that are now bringing intelligence together of what do we all know together? What do we all want to solve for? What type of housing can we get built? And that is music to my ears because I haven't heard this kind of conversation in the past, right? And I was fortunate enough to be invited to one of them, and I really want to be grateful to the Canadian Industrial Construction Coalition for including me in their conversation. But now, how do you take all of those principles and implement them, which is where we think using, so I'm highlighting a slide here to identify the key risks and make them transparent to every player. Because despite government being given a path as to how can they support the industry, every player is not the same. They're not homogeneous in their capabilities, capacities to deal with risks and all of that, and partnerships. So our thinking is that the path to scaling is simple. Share risks transparently, collaborate around that. That makes insurance easier to obtain. A developer's insurance should not be independent of the factory's insurance or surety. There's something called, I learned recently, owner-controlled insurance program. Well, that's a beautiful construct where the developer owns all the insurance premiums and payment and all risk management as a result. But it's not to say that developer is accountable for factory's performance. The factory still has to do its job, but it's much more cost effective for the factory and the developer if they can make their risks transparent to the insurer and how well they're managing them. So with that in mind, I'll skip through a few slides here. And I want to show what the product could look like. So imagine you're a developer or a factory, you start with your portfolio view, you can see your projects, you click on a project that you're currently working on. That project it'll show you in terms of risk management, what is your workflow. So have you performed planning and feasibility checks, risk checks through ModuCheck? Have you done your design checks between the factory and the developer through module design? Is your module build set up in a way that your factory has a precise understanding of what your constraints are. Similarly, that thinking trickles through the shipping phase in ModuShip, and ModuSite is where the site integration risks are captured. And the beauty of this is that it's a very intuitive interface. It should not take more than an hour to complete one phase for any reasonably knowledgeable actor. Now, if they don't know anything, what we do is we boil these scores down into a modular construction risk score and a modular operator risk score. So when choosing a partner, it's like a FICO score or a DBRS score or S&P credit score. People who do a good job over and over again should be recognized and given preferential treatment for that. And that's how they scale their own capability. That's how we scale the industry.
Yep.
But if everyone remains, it's like, I don't know you for every interaction, then your relationships are mostly regional in nature or local in nature. And local and regional relationships do not even have an ambition to scale because they know it's too big. And you're more likely to fail trying that, like Katera failed, for example. Going international and national is hard. So our suggestion here is that, take a structured approach to risk management. Take it phase by phase. At each phase, a developer as a key actor can assign risk assessment to the most suitable actors. So at some stages, it may be an architect. Some stages, it may be a factory architect or designer, so on and so forth. If they are open to using something like this as part of their cost management structure, what it does is makes them aware of what are the risks that cause them to fail the most or has caused the industry to be challenged in not being able to avoid the 5-year fade as Gary Fleischer describes it. If you know these risks, you're more likely to avoid the 5-year fade. And we're trying to do a dual job here, trying to make the industry aware that these are the risks that are manifesting. And then you should do your own assessment and see how you scale up vis-a-vis your own expectations, vis-a-vis your partner's expectations, and overall across the industry, right? And the lenders and insurers as observers would be able to see how the industry is evolving. And there would be a greater interest from reinsurers who are a key player in the insurance industry. And CMHC, Fannie Mae, HUD, they all have a key role to play in ensuring streamlined flow of financing, which can only happen if they have solid underwriting standards, which can only happen if they know all the risks well.
Right. So let me get this, straight here. Who do you think the biggest user in the beginning is going to be? Is it going to be insurance companies, or is it going to be banks that are, because they're the ones that want to reduce their risk the most, right? The manufacturers or manufacturers in general are interested in building and keeping their production lines full, not being graded on a FICO score, right? Like it's kind of like, how do I keep my credit good? I can get these, so I can buy that new car or buy the house or whatever it is. This is almost an industry tool that I see leaning towards insurance the developers or financiers of whatever sort is, to help them understand the lay of the land, because they don't just build in the backyard. They may have a project in California, a project in Colorado, different manufacturers, different, GCs and so on and so forth, different insurance people. Who do you see as the first adopters of this?
So, I should give a call out to my previous colleagues at CMHC in the Innovation and Partnerships team. I learned a lot from them, from the conversations with them about behavioral economics and behavioral insights and change management. And one of the things I took away is that we need to make sure that we are inducing the right behaviors from the developers and factories without burdening them, because they are the people who are actually delivering housing. At the same time, the ones that will benefit the most from keeping up the construction industry financially are lenders and insurers. They are the ones who make a lot of money through relatively passive investment. So our approach here is that developers, factories, you demonstrate willingness to manage your risks better. Insurers and lenders, you watch the developers and factories do that and design programs that make modular construction at scale possible.
So Do you also see the government and building departments being involved in this process?
Absolutely. So, one of the lovely things about using data for ecosystem level education is that if you're able to demonstrate where the risks of modular construction lie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, we have a hypothesis 217. Maybe the right number is 150 or 250. I don't know. Once we pilot it, we'll know that. Once we use it at scale, it is now an industrial construction data exchange, right? So any participant, including municipalities, governments, now will have clearer insight into where are we building with modular? What are we building? Is it climate resilient? What do we need to test for to make sure that it's safe, it is structurally sound, it is environmentally compatible with where we want to go? So it really creates a very data-oriented environment for each municipality, each province, or each state, each
Mm-hmm.
region, each county, and each country to know where should their investment focus be. And by the way, the insurers and lenders will keep you honest if you didn't get it right.
Oh yeah, they definitely will. So how does it actually work? You may be my lender, and I say, Atul, you are a real jerk to work with, right? And then that lender decides to give me a bad score just because they don't like me personally. Like, how do you control, almost like the BBB, somebody giving you a bad review when it was more of an opinion versus what you did?
So the behavioral default that we are building in here is that nobody else is assessing you. You are assessing yourself. So every partner has a fair chance that although it's been around for a long time, the capability resets have been so frequent. Operation Breakthrough many years ago made a bold statement, invited a lot of actors. Now, Build Canada Homes is equally bold. The Rapid
Mhm.
Housing Initiative in Canada a few years ago was equally bold. The challenge with that is with every reset, you have new players with new capabilities. Now, robotics and AI are all the rage. They should be. I mean, we have the technology. Why wouldn't we use it? 3D printing, similarly, is all the rage. We should use it if we can. And other robots, Dusty Robotics and all that, they're doing some fantastic work in terms of reducing the reliance on manual labor. But all of that, the behavioral default comes to do I know that whatever I'm doing is not too risky for the project?
Mhm.
And I assess what I'm doing against the risk scale of the project. And if the developer believes that, yeah, all of this is stacking up well, the MCRS score is telling me that my project is viable, then they can take it to the lender and insurer with a greater confidence. And the lender and insurers today, they do a lot of manual underwriting. They have standard products and standard questions that they ask. But it is based on a philosophy of all the risks are insured, therefore you're less likely to fail. You have
Mhm.
a strong balance sheet, therefore you're less likely to fail. You have a great reputation, therefore we know you won't risk that. We are breaking that down and saying, okay, no one in modular industry has that level of visibility into the top developers, their credibility, their balance sheets, and even if it does work, it is too capital intensive. If you're a billionaire, you still will think about, do I want to do one modular oriented project or three stick built projects? Because that's the equity conversation.
Right. Can you give me a few examples of how early risk detection can prevent costly, delays or failures in modular or any panelized or offsite project?
Yeah, with the caveat that all my knowledge is secondhand, gained from research papers and
Sure.
listening to people like yourself and the guests that speak on your shows. But one example is, the Navajo, the Zenny Homes Navajo example that recently played out. And everything was set up right. The factory was being built. Unfortunately, the indigenous peoples were not along for the ride as much as um, everyone believed. And there was not enough buy-in. Now, factory requires a degree of predictability about the schedule, about the process, and it is not it's not surprising that they just did what they do best. They move with speed. Otherwise, they burn capital. On the other hand, when you don't manage the change adequately with the customers and the landowners, then you get into um, this territory of conflict where you cannot reconcile it. And so Zenny Homes had to stop that project. About 100 people were let go, and nobody benefits, right? There was a lot of conversation, there was a lot of money invested, but it didn't result in any benefit for anyone.
Yeah, got it. Got it. So where are you with this program today, right? And when can we expect to see this hit the market, and how are you going to tackle the market, and what do you need from the audience out there to help you with this?
Thank you for that question. So, the screens that you saw are conceptual in nature. We are still very early. We did receive a small amount of funding from the government of Canada. Thank you to the ISED program, IRAP program by ISED. And that amount of capital that we have is sufficient for us to develop a pilot MVP. So what you're seeing on the screens right now, what you saw a few minutes ago, is what we hope to develop in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And we're looking for factories, developers, maybe up to 10 to 12 at most, but 10 to 12 teams of factories, developers, shippers. If they have standard lenders that work with them, the lenders, and some independent lenders and insurers as well. Plus, we're looking at rolling this out across US and Canada in November and December. So those are the 2 months where we'll open the pilot up for people to express interest. And like I said, up to 12 to 13 might be the best we can manage in terms of load with the product we're building right now, with the expectation that within by the end of this year, within the 2 months, we will have learned which risks matter the most, what risk assessments are the most useful, and is the platform practical to use for most actors. And if they tell us that they didn't like it, if they didn't find the risks relevant, we would learn from that. Our pathway to build this product out is over the next 3 to 5 years. We want to continue to invest in the product and make it available to increasingly larger number of developers. Now, we're starting with a smaller ecosystem of factories in Canada, in the US too. So I think it's a grow together kind of proposition.
Sure. And so are you using AI to help collect this data? How are you actually going to collect the data? And we all know garbage in, garbage out. How do you get true, clean data? And then how do you reach out to all of these manufacturers, banks, lenders, and get on their radar?
That is such a great question. I don't know the answer to your second part of the question. Our goal right now is to work through the relationships that I have cultivated over the last couple of years, knowing that I'm working towards this pilot.
Yeah.
And there's a number of them that I've cultivated over time. But in terms of the first part of your question, sorry, I skipped my mind.
How do you collect the data? How are you getting the clean data from all these stakeholders?
And the use of AI. So the AI is a critical component of enabling accelerated learning. If there's a company like Beck Modular in Canada filed for bankruptcy or creditor protection a month ago. Now, that knowledge is available to AI in the most assimilated and condensed form, concentrated form, because AI has the ability to access a vast amount of data and process it quickly. So with the right prompts, I'm finding that there's a story about every failure that I can build like that. Right? And with all the storytelling, you overlay that with Lean Six Sigma related frameworky questions and ask, okay, what caused that failure? What would prevent that failure? What is the likelihood it will happen again? Who will fail from that? Who is likely to not have to deal with that failure ever? And so as soon as you start getting into some of that, the power of data and AI together becomes visible. Now we have a baseline starting point with the 217 risks that I mentioned earlier, but we know that it's not everything. So we are reaching out to various entities. Like I've had conversations with some data providers over the last couple of months, and I continue to have them to see if we can bring forward a stronger starting point in November. But the ultimate strength of the data will come from it acting as an exchange, where people say, I tried this, it didn't work. Okay, now the entire population on ModuRisk now knows what didn't work, because AI will auto-suggest as part of the platform what to do to mitigate that risk, likelihood of that risk, what should you do to mitigate the impact of that risk. And you can override the auto suggestions by all means. But the intent is that AI, now informed by every activity in the world, every failure in the world, and platform interactions, will tell you what you should do. You may choose not to do it for your own reasons, but that's what we're working towards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a long journey. What, in your opinion, and I know you're going to ask me something as well. I just see it coming from you. But you know, what are the biggest risks? Like, if you were to say this is the biggest risk, is, you know, for you know, the industry, or what's holding it back? I understand the stakeholders don't talk, but what if you could wave your magic wand, what would be the one thing that you would try and fix immediately in the industry to make it easier for us to all move further, faster?
I would ask Dave Cooper, why does the industry remain so fragmented after so many years?
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a soapbox, right? Listen,
Yeah.
we have, and no offense to anybody out there, you know, the NAHB, who represents the site builders of America, right? Whether it's single family, multifamily, they have one voice on Capitol Hill. You know, us as an industry, we have several different associations, all do great work, all do things for their industry. But when I look at modular in particular, right? You got modular associations doing amazing things out there. But modular associations are also using components, which is the SPCA association, right? Most modular manufacturers are also panelizers, right? But there's a panelizer, so, you know, panel association. It's fragmented.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there isn't a singular voice that goes to
So
Capitol Hill. Huh?
What's the magic wand? For me, you know, it's data-oriented intelligence that brings people together. Let's share that we have this shared problem, that we could share the solutions. Let's accelerate everybody's learning. As you know, a VP at Assembly Corp often tells me, you know, it's an all boats rising with the tide situation.
Right.
So why aren't we working more closely together?
Well, you know, listen, I mean, I think it can, and I can put my foot in my mouth on this in several ways. You know, everybody's siloed, and, you know, everybody has their own business agenda for what they do, whether it's a builder, manufacturer, an association, Dave Cooper Live, we all have our own agenda, where we're going and what we're doing. You know, but I think to move the industry forward, we do need to have, you know, a singular voice for the industry overall. Not a new association. We got plenty of associations that do amazing things, but there has to be a voice. And earlier you said, I know your platform's not geared towards the consumer. Well, guess what? The consumer, the developers, right? When we look at this and say, all right, well, most people think developers, the big players that are out there, right? Whitey Turner, you know, all these big players.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is, there are micro investors and developers throughout this entire country that may be doing 6 townhouses, or you know, a small duplex, or a 10-unit building, but they're scared to do it. They are a consumer base because they're not a big developer with billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. I think this plays to everybody. We need the consumer to ask for a better product. How do we get the consumer to ask for a better product? Same thing. We have to have a singular voice and a singular message going out to people, right? Because it works for everybody. Modular builders are panelized builders, like I said. So maybe you don't want to do modular. Modular is not your fit, because I don't think modular is the solution for everything and for every project. However, that means you can use panel, right? And vice versa. So yeah, you got me on a soapbox.
Makes me wonder about one thing that, you know, I've been asking that question to everybody. modular, I come from the software world, and for me, modular it's a component, it's a Lego. Now,
Yeah.
a Lego can be a panel, a Lego can be a room, a Lego can be a bathroom pod, it can be a
Right.
cassette, right? We somehow have arrived at this, what seems to be very artificial and unclear distinction between offsite, panelized, modular, industrialized construction. Okay, they all have some nuanced differences, but from a consumer standpoint, it's incredibly confusing. What am I buying?
Yes. Well, that the nomenclatures or name, what we call things is different all around the world. And that's a whole nother headache, right? What is the messaging
Yeah.
that goes out there? But, I think to me, that's the biggest thing. And it's one of the things, at Dave Cooper Live, we're working on, quite honestly. I keep putting it up, the green build here. We are taking our show on the road, and it is to bring all of these people together. We want to bring everybody under one roof for conversations, to collaborate, to build. Our goal and what we do is to bring awareness to this awesome industry that we all love so much. It's not to be anything other than an advocate and somebody to put it out there and say, hey, listen, open your eyes, regardless, And, for those of you out there, and I'll put it on the screen, full screen here for a quick sec, green build is one of those things. We are going to bring the offsite community together at green build. This is step number one. You keep watching. We're going to grow bigger and bigger. If I have my chance, which we do right now, this is going to be the Bauma or Ligna. And I'm not saying green build by itself. We are going to build a trade show that is going to bring all the stakeholders together so we can have real conversation, real collaboration to help all of you, Atul, meet all these people and grow together. Yep, you got me on a soapbox and definitely down a path I wasn't planning on, but we are planning on, bringing this together. And it's only about putting people in a room.
I love
to me,
what you're
it's
doing.
not to be an association. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one environment. I'm here for us all collectively. My kids need a house to live in. They can't afford it, period.
Yeah. And I love the work that's being done and profiled heavily with reframe systems. I think you got Vikas on your show one time.
Oh, I love Vikas.
And
Absolutely.
has been on your show is doing some great work with systems thinking in Washington. And Bequel was on your show recently as well. Scott Bailey. But I do feel that there's a critical mass of thinking coming together on how do we address these barriers through risk management or whatever other mechanism that works best.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think for anybody out there too, because you have a new product that you're coming out with, anybody that is on, LinkedIn or commenting, when, I see a lot of negative, oh, that'll never work. This is how people think, we tried that or ... They try and poke holes in it right away. And here's what I say to that too, since you got me on a soapbox, I'm seeing a lot of it. If we aren't trying and people aren't trying to make an effort, right? Then we're not getting anywhere. No. Doesn't mean you believe it has to be a good thing or a bad thing. You should applaud the fact that people are putting their time, energy, and money behind trying to build something better. And I think that's the big thing. Absolutely. So, oh man, you got me going. All right. So I think the answer to this is we do need to come together and we need to collaborate. And that's what I hope that we do for you as well, as, put you in front of people that say, all right, well, this is cool. We do need something that helps us standardize and de-risk what we're doing so we can get the biggest headache in this industry out of the way, and that's money.
Message me on LinkedIn, direct message me if you want to be a part of the pilot, if you're listening to this show. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, and I'll put it on the bottom here. All right, listen, everybody. I already did my spiel on green build and what we're doing there. I'm also want to make sure we thank all of our supporting members. If you want to be a supporting member, please reach out to us. We'd love to have your name ticking across the bottom of our screen and also come into our industry events. And Atul, is there anything that you want to leave us with? Didn't you have one slide there that said it all? What is that slide?
Yeah, let's
go back to it. Let's end on that slide because I really think it's a powerful slide. There it is. Bam. The only real failure is the failure to learn from failure. So let's support everybody out there. And let's go to a couple quick comments. You want to do a couple quick comments? I see some things popping up here. Lord knows what I'm going to click on. All right. Neil MacArthur says, would you propose the risk management package being used in a similar firm with traditional house builders? That would then create a level playing field. Hey, that's a good question, Neil. What do you think, Atul?
Yeah. Hi, Neil. Nice to hear your question. So my take on this is that we are starting with the modular industry because it's a smaller industry. Think of it as a beachhead solution from a adventure or venture standpoint. But ultimately, this whole risk transference model that traditional construction has is the culprit, in my view, for escalating costs and escalating prices. So, yes, ultimately, risk management should be everybody's business. Everyone should do it. Banks do it, insurance companies do it, nuclear reactors do it. For some reason, air traffic controllers do it, which is, I know, your favorite area. And so, but I do think that it's time that the construction industry also starts thinking risk management more than risk transference.
Appreciate you, Neil. Thank you for that. Doug Hayden, what's happening, Doug? Doug says it would be great if GSEs like Fannie and Freddie would get on board with supporting modular and prefab. They should all be looking at a tool like this. Yep. What do you think on that there? I'm sure you're going to agree with it.
It's a great comment too. Yeah, I think ultimately the adoption of modular will only go as far as the government incentives enable them, because it is a higher risk proposition to launch any new industry, right? And it has to be a public-private partnership. So any institutions, whether it's CMHC and BCH in Canada or Fannie, Freddie, HUD in the US, they have to be behind this.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to assume, because it doesn't come up my LinkedIn user, I believe this might be Henry Mickelberg. Henry, if it is you, please get that fixed so we can see your name when it pops up. He says, spoiler alert, 200 plus qualitative and quantitative overlapping data points, let alone self-assessment, because that's just a methodology cashmere. I suppose a succinct sentence along value prop for prospective stakeholders would be too much to ask for.
No, I take that as very useful feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
That's my goal. We don't want 200 risks in the database if 20 will do. But we want those 20 to be chosen by the industry, not by us.
Yeah, for sure. Doug's busy today. I'm going to put him up again. Given the recent announcements from the feds in Canada, that's right, billions of dollars of investment towards modular. Listen up, Washington, D.C. Doge, if you're out there, pay attention to this, because this is what we need. Supporting modular and prefabricating housing. Canada would be a blueprint for the U.S. to follow. Maybe. No, not maybe. We need a blueprint like that.
100%. Like, the principles of risk management are universal. Every country has either thought about it or will be thinking about it if you want to go modular.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, we're going to end with this one. Doug says, Dave, you are the lead agent of change, my friend. Doug, I don't know if I'm the lead agent, but I definitely have a big mouth. So, and I've been in this long enough to call BS when I see it. So, Atul, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate having you on the show today. I love people doing new things, great things. And the one thing I haven't heard yet on this show is somebody building a tool for the lenders, the insurance companies, the developers, and the manufacturers to all get on the same page when it comes to financing projects.
You heard it today. I hope it'll go where we want it to go. Thank you.
I did. We did. And I'm super happy. All right. So with that said, everybody, listen, I'm going to wrap up one more time. Come on. We need your support at Greenville. We want to see you there. We are going to bring this industry together, and we're going to do it in a big way, because this event isn't just another conference. We're bringing the politicians. We're bringing the decision makers in California together. We're going to have a stage 20 by 40 on the showroom floor for 2 days straight with educational sessions. If you're interested in being part of that, please DM me on LinkedIn. If you're interested for your 20% off or your free pass, to get to the expo floor where we will be. It's not a charge to come see us. So hit that QR code and we will see you there. All right, my friend. Thank you so much, Atul. For the rest of you out there, guess what? It's Wednesday. You still got 2.5 days to keep building it better. So now you can stop watching me right after we play the outro with our supporting members. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.